at Q 2015 Infinite Thinking Machine Live. I'm with Diane Darrow and Rob Darrow, who I asked to speak with because Diane and I share first and middle names, and his name is also Darrow. Kidding. Actually, what we're here to talk about is blended learning and the marriage of the SAMR model with blended learning, and how you can take bad pedagogy and put it online and it doesn't get any better. So I'd like to hear a little bit about what you guys are doing with that blend.
So I'm glad you mentioned marriage, because we're not married. Just want to make
yes.
that clear.
They're not even related.
Individual people
Not married.
who met on Twitter, of all places. But so for many years, I've really been a proponent of online and blended learning in a variety of schools. And then a friend of mine mentioned the SAMR model, which I'd not looked at before, and thought about how can blended learning marriage with the SAMR and how can that work together. And then I was sharing that with Diane at one point, and she said, oh, we ought to, present on that. And then we kind of went from there.
Keep your mic right in front of your mouth.
Right in front of my mouth.
Yes.
Here it is.
So I was thinking about how SAMR, not only in transforming technology to redefine how we were using technology, but thinking about its implication for learning. And one thing that I care very much about is developing students' critical thinking, creative problem solving. So I cross-sectioned SAMR with the Bloom's taxonomy, and we were looking at how to use technology in ways that are develop critical thinking and then use that within the blending learning environment.
So along the blended learning environment, I've got what I call the continuum from textbook enhanced to online teaching and learning. And you've got to move along that continuum to begin to understand what's it like in the print world versus the digital world versus the online world. And as I've told many people, you couldn't have really good blended learning till we had online tools with for blended learning. And then that's how all those pieces kind of came together.
Okay. For people who maybe aren't familiar with the SAMR model, are you comfortable kind of explaining what the 4 levels of that are, what SAMR stands for?
Substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. And
You didn't know there was going to be a quiz.
there was going to be a quiz. What? How's the rhyme go?
The rhyme
Same,
goes,
same, not so lame. Reframe.
Change the game.
Change the game.
So
Oh,
Amy
that's cool.
Burball
Yeah,
Yes.
Amy did
online created a different version of SAMR, and that was the rhyme we shared with our group today.
that. So basically, it's looking
Same,
at
same, not so lame.
reframe.
Reframe and change the game.
Change the
That's
game.
great.
Yeah.
So the first 2 levels with really connect with Bloom's taxonomy, typically connect with the 3 lower levels of thinking. And then you move up into the 2 higher, modification, redefinition, and then you start looking at analyzing and evaluating data, designing projects, designing prototypes, and creating.
And when we think about online learning, we can think of the SAMR model because there's a lot of bad online courses. If you simply are putting PowerPoints and videos of people lecturing online and calling that an online course, it's not engaging the learners. So the SAMR model really helps to be thinking about how do we move up to that higher engagement level in the online environment, which can also be the blended learning environment.
So I think what I'm hearing is we ask more of our students when we take them to the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. We ask more of our teachers when we ask them to move up that SAMR model towards using things in new ways and creating new things. And we're going to ask the same thing of our online learning. Whatever is out there, it shouldn't just be take the old traditional factory model classroom and make it digital, but rather have really transformative experiences for teachers and for students and for anybody that's involved in online learning.
Absolutely.
I love how you talked about the student learning and then the teacher use. And one of the things that we talk about is using the SAMR model and the dialogue and the conversation that you have as professionals to design with intent. So SAMR model isn't a way to evaluate what you're doing, but it's a way to promote dialogue and questioning.
And that, the dialogue in the SAMR model can be as you apply it to student learning, but it can also be used for professional learning with teachers. One of the conversations we had was realizing that just collaborating makes you move up that SAMR level. That if you do everything by yourself, you pretty much can stay at that substitution level. But it's when you start collaborating and sharing with other people that you move up there to have more engaging and enriching experiences for learning as well as professional learning with teachers as well.
It kind of makes me think of back in the day when I was an English teacher, we should tell students, don't take a pepper shaker of commas and just sort of shake them out over your paper and think you've put in commas. With technology, don't just sprinkle some technology onto what you're doing and call it better, right? We really need to be considering the learning goals that we have and the pedagogy behind the decisions that we're making. So it sounds like what you all are developing, and you mentioned Amy Burval, and I know there's a lot of people that are very interested in what's going on in this space. It sounds like you guys are teaming up, not just as Team Darrow, but you have this common interest, and there's definitely a need for this kind of exploration and discussion. What kind of formats is that happening? Is this happening a lot on Twitter and through Twitter chats and online things, or only at conferences like this? Where are these conversations happening?
Well, they're definitely happening here at CUE. There's no doubt about it, because people who are interested in enriching their teaching are always at CUE, much more than others. So I would suggest that people who are already doing stuff at the modification and redefinition level are the ones here at CUE, because the only way you begin to innovate and collaborate is when you actually show up at events like this to hear new ideas and have conversations like with you right here.
Right, with people you don't get to see every day,
Exactly.
Right? You were going to add something there, Diane.
I've been using a conversation in teacher training, teacher development training, and one of the things that I'm asking them to do is to share out what they're creating, what they're doing, and then more that educators use their personal learning networks, social networks, to share how their results and what they're learning and what they're doing, the richer that conversation will become.
And speaking of the sharing, the other piece that I just want to bring out here is that we have what's called the Blended Teacher Network, blendedteachernetwork.org. For that very purpose you're just talking about, is to share among teachers these different ideas and begin to really have the conversation online in addition to the face-to-face experiences here at CUE.
Great. So I would recommend that people go check out
blendedteachernetwork.org.
blendedteachernetwork.org, but also look both of you up on Twitter and just Google you and find out about the kinds of things that you're both involved in.
Last name's Darrow.
Darrow, D-A-R-R-O-W.
D-A-R-R-O-W.
Great. And so thank you very much for joining us today. I'm excited to hear about this as someone who has done a master's degree online and has taught graduate level courses online. This is something very close to my heart. So I'm glad to hear there's people really having concerted conversations about these things.
Great.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks.
Looking for more great ideas? Check out infiniteThinking.org to catch all previous episodes, as well as links to everything featured in this show. And if you've got mad love for the ITM, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And remember, you are the Infinite Thinking Machine.
We are the